This is what I'm doing today has been the culmination of study and experiment and thought and hesitation for years, and you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm going to tell you. Maybe some of you have heard of being a sovereign citizen, creating your own common law ID, not paying taxes because you actually don't have income because you have wages. Anyway, if you're not familiar with any of that, then you won't have any idea why I'm doing what I'm doing. If you are familiar, you basically know that there's one strategy that you're basically using legal definitions to say none of that applies to me and I'm opting out. But you're basically setting yourself up for your word against the court's word, the cop's word, the IRS's word. And yes, you have precedent, you have legal ground to stand on, but it's a little shaky because most people with authority don't know what you're talking about. They think you're crazy, and if they do bother to look it up, or if they already know, they're not going to respect it, and you probably will wind up in jail or paying a ton of fines. What I'm doing right now is I'm getting a state citizenship passport. And one of the scenarios in which you would use that is, so in the system I described earlier, you're a sovereign citizen and you're not driving, you're traveling, and you're not using a vehicle, it's your private property and all of that. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You never identify yourself because you haven't committed a crime for a traffic law, because you're not part of traffic. Anyway, in this scenario, you do identify yourself because you want them to know that you are not a U.S. citizen. You are a state citizen backed by your birth certificate showing that you were born in one of the states of the Union. And anyway, I want to link a video to the video that I watched that kind of opened my eyes to where in one system you're kind of being a rebel and going outside and against the established norms, hoping to spew out enough legal definitions to try and convince somebody either not to bother with you because it's too much of a hassle, or convince them that you might actually have a point. This way, you're basically, the way I understand it is that when you get stopped at like a traffic stop and you show them your passport and they run the passport number, they might still give you a ticket. They probably will, because they've been instructed to ignore your citizenship. But when they run it, supposedly, this is coming from cops who have quit or retired and are allowed to talk about it. Supposedly, when they run your passport, your state citizenship passport, it comes up as do not detain, like you're red flagged. Do not detain, do not ticket, do not arrest, leave this person alone. They are a different kind of citizen. It really comes down to what umbrella of authority you want over yourself. And the way I understand it is that there are different authorities, jurisdictions in which you can be citizenship of. You can be a state citizen, you can be a federal citizen, you can be a 14th Amendment citizen. Apparently there are other kinds of citizenships, and there's case law that define and explain the different kinds of citizenship and what rights you have, what rights you give up, and what the differences are. I am by no means an expert in this. So after I get my passport, the first thing I'm going to do is, I've been told that I can take and use my passport number and link that to car insurance, and because it's a different citizenship, I will probably be getting a significant discount because I'm under a different jurisdiction. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to test the waters with this theory with that first, and then I'm going to test the waters with something else. And I don't know what that is yet. And so if you bother to watch the video I'm going to link with, you'll know exactly how I filled out my passport application. And I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but I marked on there that I am not a U.S. citizen. My parents are not U.S. citizens, and my spouse is not U.S. citizen. That's only one thing I did differently. There are other things like my address, my permanent address. There's a couple things I did differently on there that will hopefully get their attention enough to change my citizenship. And I included my social security number because they would probably look that up anyways and put it on there, so there's no point in fighting that battle. So I just got done paying for, swearing, you gotta do an oath at the end of the passport thing, which I don't remember doing before. So the guy looked over my passport, made sure everything was exactly right, even though everything should be exactly different. And I got the impression that he had seen it before, and he thought it was a joke. He found it humorous, but there was no issue. And which I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I don't know. It seemed very anticlimactic. It just very what you would expect if everything was normal, which it wasn't normal. Anyways, we will see what happens. I'm excited to see what happens.